Good morning. Good morning. Hope everyone is doing great. Welcome to Saturday Sampler. I'm going to give a few minutes here for people to start popping in. So it's just now 10 o'clock. All right. Let's see. All right, Joanne, welcome. All right, we're starting to get a few people. I know it's holiday weekend, and so that may make a little bit of difference on who comes. Good morning, Laverne. So, I got a quick little project here this morning. Hi, Melanie, Sonia. All right, we're getting here. I am prepping for my California retreat that's coming up on July 17th. So it's coming pretty quickly, and just, gathering things, putting stuff together for that, so that the experience for everyone can be the best that it can. This week I had a cancellation, and so if there's anybody in Northern California and in 2 weeks you want to go on a retreat, shoot me an email, because I do have a space that has opened up for the retreat. So anyway, but as I was planning for the retreat, I had a gift that I wanted to give to one of the people who are coming. It's something that she loves to do and that she enjoys very much. And so anyway, I decided that I would also make the wrapping, because I went to get wrapping paper and I didn't have the kind I wanted. So I decided to go ahead and make a bag and put the little gift stuff into the bag. And as I was pondering that, I thought, there are certain fabrics that she uses a lot with her collage quilting and the different things that she does. And so as I was thinking about it, I decided that I would use fabric that would work for, project that she is working on. And so I used some of my hand-dyed fabric, and I used an outer fabric, and I'll show you in just a minute, for this project. And then as I was looking for a closure, I decided to use some of my sari silk ribbon that I have that's kind of a mess, because I thought, she could take and cut this bag apart, and then she would have fabrics. So part of the gift is my bag. And so let me show you what I'm talking about. So I made this little bag, and the dimensions were simply that one of the things that I was going to put in it was a water pen. And so the water pen needed to have about this length. So I made it a little bit taller. And then the other items in there were no wider than this. And so this became the dimensions for the bag. And so when all is said and done, this is about, it would be, taken apart, it would be about 4 inches by, I think, 12 or 16 inches, something like that, 14 or 16. And it's a solid piece of fabric. So that, gives quite a bit. And then on the inside, I had used some of my hand-dyed, or ice-dyed actually, fabrics. And so that'll add to something too. So let's, and of course I wanted it to be simple. So let's get to putting this quick little bag together. I'll put this to the side. And so this has no dimension. It's basically just to be showing you how it's done. So you can make it, and you can even cut this and put your bag and assemble it any way you want to. I decided to keep the pieces as long as I could, because if she decided to, take the bag apart or cut it apart, she would have, a good piece of fabric here. So that's basically what I did for that. So with that being said, then I had some leftover pieces of, or charm, part of a charm pack of the solids from a project we did a couple months back. And so basically let me get this out of the way. I turned the ends over, and so I'm going to use this as a guide, and turn the other side over. I really didn't do much measuring at all, so that they will be about the same length, and then iron these down, because I did want it to be, simple. So I ironed both edges over, folded it. It's not that you couldn't come up with this and that it's doing anything great and wonderful or different, but it's just to give you an idea of some of the things that you might do if you're giving a gift to a friend who's a quilter, artist, whatever, that you can kind of make your gift and the wrapping for your gift as part of it. So, Cindy, welcome. First time watching. We do lots of different things on here. Today is one of my stranger moments, but hey. So what I am going to do is right sides together of these two fabrics. I am going to place one of these pretty central. I'm going to try to center it as best as I can. I can put it right here and I've got it, pretty close to center there as I use my, my mat. And then this piece will also go on there. I'm going to stick a couple pins. And not, try not to stick yourself. And I'm going to do that also on the other side. And if you have any questions as I'm going along, or you have any comments, or you have done anything similar, as, you have done, things for friends or whatever, please share that in the chat box. I know that from the sharing that has gone on in the past, I have really learned a lot from each of you, and I know that you have a lot to offer one another. And so if you have any thoughts or ideas, always please feel free to share them. And I've gotten a lot of comments this week from different people that participated in our New York Beauty Challenge. And, there's a lot of you that took that on. And I was surprised at how many people had never done a New York Beauty block before. And you tackled it and put it together and did, just a beautiful job with that. Thank you. Before I sew this, I just want to make sure that I don't have any questions. All right, I don't see any real quick there. So now I'm going to pop over to the sewing machine, and I'm simply going to sew across that piece, the top and bottom of this. So I tend to, when I give, whoops, I just lost my thread. Not a good thing. Now, without a light here, let's see how well I do at threading. I kind of do it by touch and feel, and that looks about right kind of thing. There we go. Sorry about that, but it happens. I was going to say something, I got distracted, now I can't remember. Alright, let's back over to this side, and now I'm just going to turn this around. And I'm going to kind of finger press that so that I don't get a crease when I press one side. And then I'm just going to press that flat. And again, if you have questions or comments, please pop those in the chat box. All right, now so this becomes where I put my ties to go through. If you look at this, that's how I put those sari silk ribbons in place. So now I fold it together, and I have started doing, my simple bags, and using what I call the pillowcase method, the French sewn pillowcases, so that I get very quickly and easily on some of these very simple bags. And I want those to sit pretty close together. And I want to make sure that, this is nice and flat down here, and my sides are all together. So I basically, to put this together now, I'm going to sew it as I would a French seam pillowcase, because that way on the inside I don't have to leave a hole to turn it for the top, and then go back in and either machine stitch that opening or hand stitch it or whatever. It's already taken care of. And as I said, this was a very simple bag. And even with this is a bag I made some time ago, but as you can see, I even do it with my zippered bags. I don't know if you can see that that's the pillowcase method in there. So when I do my zipper bags, I do exactly the same thing with it. So I'm going to sew about 1/8 of an inch down each side, and then with the right side out, then I'm going to turn it wrong side out, and then sew my 1/4 inch or a little bit fatter than a 1/4 inch seam, and then my bag is done. And I'm going to get rid of some of these because they always kind of pop through. So I try to get rid of as much of this so I don't have to trim it at the end. Because some of our fabrics do fray quite a bit. And I don't want these long threads hanging out here. So that takes me longer than it does to sew the whole piece. Alright, so, and you can start at the top, you can start at the bottom. It doesn't really matter. But I'm going to sew about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. So each side is sewn. And now, again, I want to get rid of some of these threads. They just, as you're running across there, they just kind of keep popping out. And I don't like them to be on the outside of what I'm doing. So now I'm going to turn this wrong side out. I'm going to use my favorite tool for turning. And I really do appreciate how nicely it gets the corners in here. And it doesn't puncture my fabric. So I do like that. And now I'm going to press these sides nice and flat. I think the ironing and setting it up takes longer than actually making the bag. We have a lot of birthdays and events coming up, and so this would make, for your sewing friends, a nice little gift for them. See, that's what I mean by those little, and I just didn't show you the ironing. I just left you sitting there. But see where these little threads pop out? I try to get those off. So basically, I have ironed this flat on both sides. I used this turning tool to get in there and get those corners nice and pushed out. And I do like that. And so I'm sure Kristen probably put a link up for that. So now that I've got this wrong side out, now I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch on either side. And that should cover up the other seam, and it should be enclosed then. And with a 1/4 inch seam, I didn't trim off my corners because I didn't feel I needed to. Because they're small. And so I don't necessarily do that when I'm sewing those. And why this is taking a little bit more to sew is that my Sew Steady mat that I use under here is basically wearing out. I need to get a new one, and it pushes my fabric back behind because it's the opening from going over it so many times. So they do wear out over time. And I take one back stitch, and then I use my scissors to finish off with that. Alright, so now I'm going to go back and do the same thing. This time I'm going to turn it back to right side out. And I'm going to use my turning tool and just kind of run it along the seams, get that corner. And even though, as you can see, even though I, those pull out usually pretty easy, or I just, and I do that with my pillowcases too, because sometimes we get fabrics that fray quite a bit, and just running along next to my machine will make those, but I try to get as many of them as I can off of there before I sew. But for some reason today, this one fabric is really fraying a lot. Alrighty, And my little gift bag is basically done. And my inside is nice and enclosed. No, very nice inside edge, like a French pillowcase. And there I have a gift bag ready to go. And if I give it to a quilting friend, then, just cut the top, open up the side seam, and you've got two very nice pieces of fabric to use for something else. So let me see if there was any questions. Should I do this with a lining foot because of all the layers? I have no problem with the layers. You basically only have 4, which anything that you fold works just great. It doesn't have, my machine has no problem with it. If yours does, you certainly could use a different foot. But they're really, when you're looking at this, there's just 4 layers of fabric, which you would have in most seams that you would do. So I don't think that would be a problem. Eyeglasses or things like that, absolutely. What kind of mat is wearing out? Oh, it's this on my machine, and it's not really wearing out. It's kind of the way I treat it. This orange, it's called So Steady mat, and it has my lines so that I don't have to draw for half square triangles or angles or anything. I love it. It works great. But at the back here, you can see I've got some tape there. When I push different fabrics over it or something, if I didn't make sure that this was stuck down properly, it's just tearing a little bit back there. But I've had this for years, so it's not too bad. Let me see if there was any other questions that we had. I knew what you meant, Quilting Queen. So if you're interested in that turning tool, Kristen put a link there, which is great, because this for me is one of the, you buy tools, or you get a tool, and some just get hidden in a drawer somewhere, and I don't really use them because they weren't that effective. But this one I use constantly, and it has a little ball at the end, and it's from R&K, and it's called the turning tool. And I know that they have it in the store, and Kristen did put a link for it. And I'm sorry that I didn't move the camera. Yeah, French seams are easy, and they're kind of wonderful. And stitch length. I'd like to remind you of a show that Alex Anderson did on her favorite things that she learned with her machine. And I did not know this, but most machines are set for garment sewing at 2.5, and so we've always used a 2.5 seam, and it works fine. But when you start at the end or something, and you're working with a quilt block or whatever, it starts to come undone a little bit if you don't take a back stitch at the beginning. And so she started setting hers at 2.0, and you don't get that, it's a little bit tighter. And that's what, we were told to set our machines at when we did paper piecing. But I've been putting my machine now automatically at 2.0, and I don't have that undoing of a seam in my quilt blocks anymore. So, and the presser foot, it's just my normal presser foot. So I didn't do anything special with my feet, with my threads, nothing. Yeah, there's lots of people, Gloria, that make gift bags, and I think it's great. On French seams, I don't trim any of the bulk out. Yeah, I would think the bulk would come with, if you use thicker fabrics and things, then I might. But when I'm just using quilting cotton or regular cotton fabric, I do not. The tie opening is it's about 3/4 of an inch open, but that could be anything. I just made it easy on myself. I had those charm packs. They're 5 inches. I simply cut it in half, and because it was it was going to be the right length for this bag. And so there was no real huge thought into that. And so you could make that opening as small. You could use 2 or 3 to make it more decorative. There's so many things that you could do with that. I just did the easiest, which I tend to do. I go quick and easy is kind of my mantra. And if you've been watching me for a while, I think you probably have figured that out about me. Okay, the rest I think are mostly greetings. Do you run ribbon through the loops at the top? Yes, I do. That's what I did here. So and I used 2 different colors, so she would have a choice. So the turquoise one I ran through and around, and then put a tie. And then this gold color, I ran this one going this way around, so that when it's together like this, I can just pull it shut and then, tie it at the top. It looks kind of weird that, I've got 2 colors up there. But because the bag is as much a part of the whole total gift, I did it that way, and I think she'll appreciate having some sari silk. And with her collaging, she uses lots of flowers and leaves and things like that. So this fabric has that in it. So that can be useful to her in her collage. And like I said, the inside was some of my ice dyed fabric. And hopefully for, landscape collages and things like that, that will make a great sky or sunset fabric for her to use. And so I put, some thought into who I was giving this for, what's inside, and it's a little watercolor kit, and with Derwent watercolors, so that if, you paint or need to change anything, you certainly could in that. So that's what that is. And so I see a couple of things. Gloria, you're right. Sometimes the bag is just as much fun as the gift. And Kathy, I would agree with you. With pockets, it's a great project for a jewelry bag. And what a great idea. I hadn't thought of that. So I love that. And yes, Shelley, you do go in different directions. So on one side, you go in from the right side and take it around and bring it out, and then the other one you go left and bring it out on this side. So you would take it in left, come back around, and then when you pull it, it makes a drawstring. So yes. All right, that will do it for this holiday weekend. I hope you enjoyed, for those of you in the United States, a wonderful 4th of July celebration yesterday, and maybe you're still going to be celebrating through the weekend. And I will see, next weekend is the 12th, so I'll see you next weekend. Don't know what I'll be doing at that point, but I'll see you next week, and have an absolute wonderful one.